Welcome to the second Ship of the Week biography, this time for an early U.S. Navy armored battlecruiser, ACR 9 USS South Dakota. Throughout much of the 19th century, the United States Navy, when compared to those of the great European powers, was merely a deterrence force. A notable exception to that rule inevitably took place during the U.S. Civil War, but much of the tonnage hastily built for the United States and Confederate States navies was scrapped just as hastily as it was built following the end of hostilities. It was only as the dawn of a new century approached that the United States embarked on a massive naval building and modernization program, almost in tandem with another aspirational military nation, Japan, which would in short order successfully defeat the Imperial Russian Navy to the shock of the European establishment. Worldwide naval innovation would within a few years reach bewildering proportions, and nations sought to outdo each other in tonnage and capability. In the United States, a series of fast, heavily armored, and capable battleship and heavy cruiser classes entered service before 1900, and following the U.S. victory in the Spanish-American War, President Roosevelt was eager to show off the fledgling American imperial military might. Once a sufficient number of modern and impressive ships existed, they were painted in a striking white and buff color scheme, and the Great White Fleet was sent on a goodwill cruise around the world. One of the development programs that came out of this sudden push to compete on the world stage was the Pennsylvania-class armored cruisers, of which South Dakota was the last. Authorized by the United States Congress in 1900, South Dakota and her sisters, Pennsylvania, West Virginia, California, Colorado, and Maryland, were intended to serve in the line of battle alongside the more heavily armed yet slower battleships. The class missed the public relations success that was Roosevelt's circumnavigation, but they were absolutely part of the modernization movement, and early in their careers boasted the same paint scheme as seen here. Built at San Francisco for a cost of nearly $3.8 million US, South Dakota was christened in July of 1904 by Grace Herald, daughter of then South Dakota Governor Charles Herald. She was 500 feet in length and displayed more than 13,000 tons, and carried a main battery of 4 8-inch guns, a variety of secondary 6 and 3-inch guns, and 2 torpedo tubes. Naval communications, like aboard merchant ships, were progressing quickly. Gone were the days of relying exclusively on signal flags, random gun signals, or shouting over the side. Pictured here is a general overhead arrangement plan of the wireless telegraphy office and equipment aboard South Dakota. The equipment compartment is to the left on the diagram, while the room on the right contains the desk and various operators' panels. These rooms, as listed on the plan, were placed on the main deck level between two of the ship's funnels. South Dakota's early career featured regular calls at newly acquired U.S. imperial territories in the Hawaiian and Philippine Islands, as well as diplomatic visits to Japan and China. With little for the United States Navy to actually do during the pre-war years beyond look impressive, South Dakota was in and out of commission, and spent time as a reserve force unit. During the American involvement in the First World War, she re-entered active service and patrolled the South Atlantic and Brazilian coast, occasionally escorting convoys. This image here shows her as she appeared following her World War I modernization refit. The previously military mast with fighting tops mounted forward was replaced with the cage mast, seen here, and her bridge front was heavily modified. South Dakota eventually joined merchant and naval vessels alike engaged in repatriation following the end of the war. In 1919, the ship returned to the Pacific and was made flagship of the Asiatic Fleet based at Manila. By 1920, a new class of fast battleship was under development, and it was to be called the South Dakota class. They were never actually built, but unfortunately, no two Navy ships can bear the same name, so South Dakota took the name Huron to honor a prominent South Dakotan city. Depicted here appears to be a sailor from Huron enjoying liberty ashore in Beijing. USS Huron served in the Asiatic Fleet until the London Naval Treaty limitations required her disposal. She left the fleet in 1930 for scrapping at Seattle, but eventually her hulk, stripped to the waterline, was towed to Powell River, British Columbia, for use as a breakwater, where parts of her remain 80 feet beneath the river.